This is Rodney Williams, and I'm so happy to be coming into your homes, and thank you so much for opening up your doors and your hearts to this program. Today we have a very, very special guest with us this morning. This gentleman has done a lot of things. Now, I must inform you, I knew this gentleman 40 years ago. I was in my 20s. I'm now 66. You do the math. But today, we're going to be introduced to Dr. Carl Bentley. How are you doing, sir?
Good afternoon, or good morning. Good day.
Good day.
How you doing, Rodney?
I'm fine. It is so wonderful to, first of all, have you back in my life and to hear all of the wonderful things that you've been doing and all the things you've been doing out there and working with people. But let's start right there. Tell us a little bit about you, yourself. Who are you?
Who am I? Okay, I am a native of Roanoke, Virginia. I grew up there and graduated from Addison High School, and I went to Hampton University. I taught school in the city of Hampton for 5 years. Got married, moved to Wisconsin. I came back to the East Coast to attend Howard University because I got called into the ministry. Taught at Howard, worked at Howard, went to Howard, got my master's, worked at St. Elizabeth's Psychiatric Hospital as a chaplain. And then I went back to school to work on a doctor's degree. Meanwhile, something happened at St. Elizabeth's where they no longer were a federal hospital. They became a DC hospital. And I went back to teaching school, this time in Fairfax County. So while I was teaching school, I started pastoring a church and ended up pastoring a church for 36 years and teaching school for 30 years. And then that's it, I retired.
Okay, so now tell me, through all of that journey, you came into my life with the Petersburg Youth Choir.
Correct.
With Reverend Billy Lee and the Petersburg Youth Choir.
Mm-hmm.
So now what brought you to Petersburg for that journey?
Oh, I was at a point in my life where I was not maximizing my potential.
Okay.
And I just felt like there must be more to life than just teaching school and playing for church. And I did play for a large church in Newport News, 3,000 members and lots of choirs and choir rehearsals, but I was not fulfilled. And one day I saw the Petersburg Youth Choir on TV, and I said, that's a great choir. And then Petersburg Youth Choir happened to come to Newport News.
Okay.
And they were so awesome that I went up and I noticed they did not have an organist. And I had an organ. So I asked Reverend Lee if he'd like to have an organ player. And
yes.
They did have this great pianist, Lord Robinson Christian.
Uh-huh. He's still around, you know.
Dr. Christian is one of the best. But I asked Reverend Lee, could I come aboard? And Reverend Lee gave me an opportunity to come aboard. And I joined with Petersburg for about a year.
Okay.
And great time. I grew, I learned, had an opportunity to be on TV, had an opportunity to grow, but all good things come to an end. And when my ministry of learning with Petersburg Youth Choir had come to a point of termination, I had to go another route.
Okay.
So, I never forgot what I learned in Petersburg, and I never forgot the people of Petersburg. Great place.
Okay,
Great,
so now,
great organization.
where do you find yourself now?
Right now, this is what I'm doing. As a retired person, I no longer pastor. I no longer teach school. I work my own hours, but I do have 3 radio broadcasts syndicated out of Philadelphia, out of Indiana, out of Virginia. I have a TV broadcast on Roku. I write for Gospel USA magazine, and of course, I still preach once in a while, and I pastor, and I don't pastor. I preach, and I do counseling.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about that
Okay.
a little bit later, because during the time that I was working at St. Elizabeth's, I became involved in the domain of clinical ministry, and I learned a little bit about counseling and ministry and working with people who have psychological and emotional problems. And now that I have come to a point where all of the dust is settled, I'm going back to a place where I left off my learning about clinical ministry. And I picked that up again because I'm learning now about trauma ministry. I'm learning about trauma-informed ministry. I'm learning how to minister to people who have experienced circumstances that left them in a point where they feel like they're out of control.
We really do need that in the Black community because we don't usually take care of our mental health.
That's so true.
Okay, we it's always you're gonna be all right, man up, but it's never go get help, and a lot of times we need help.
That's true. Well, often we place a stigma on mental health, not only in the Black community, but in many cultures. It's considered taboo to have to be unable to handle your stress. But my analogy is this: the thoughts in your mind are like hairs in your face, and sometimes we get ingrown hairs, and when you have an ingrown hair, it causes a pimple or follicle eruption, and it causes problems. Okay, you might have to go to the dermatologist and get some help. Well, the thoughts in our mind are just like the hairs in our face, and sometimes our thoughts go haywire. And counseling and therapy helps you to go in and get those thoughts and straighten them out and put them in the right perspective. And so there's nothing wrong with seeking counseling. There's nothing wrong with seeking psychiatric help. Sometimes we do need medical assistance to help us to, the dendrites and the things in our brain don't fire right. And sometimes we need medication to help us to get our thoughts in line. So, there's nothing wrong with needing help like that. And
so now the books you write, they address these issues, these kinds of subject matters? Or?
Okay, I have 2 books. Book number 1 is called You Are an Overcomer, and it's a compendium of spiritual disciplines. It's written from a Pentecostal perspective. It talks about things that we can do to help us to overcome life's adversities. The second book is called How to Pray a Prayer That Changes Things, and it talks about different kinds of prayers and perspectives on prayer. And it talks about the power of prayer, and basically, if I can be politically correct, Overcomer is written from a Pentecostal perspective.
Okay.
Prayer That Changes Things is written from a Baptist perspective.
Okay.
And so, Pentecostal people do some things that Baptist people don't do. Okay.
Yes. And Baptist people do some things that Pentecostal people
Or
don't do.
Baptist people don't do things that Pentecostal people do. And so, basically the Baptist folk told me, "You're beating us up in your book," And so I wrote another book that takes a softer approach.
Okay.
But these books that I've written at this point address spiritual disciplines and not necessarily psychological and emotional things, ways to get perspective. Now that I have become a member of the American Association of Christian Counselors, that in addition to my training with the Association for Clinical Pastoral Education, which I started way back in the 80s when I was at St. Elizabeth's. You know, I'm at a point where, you know, more training, more awareness, lots of ideas and modalities and ideas have come down the pike since I started my training back in the 80s. I mean, when I first did my clinical training, we did not have Y2K, we did not have AIDS, we did not have Columbine, we did not have all these mass shootings, we did not have a lot of stuff that has gone on, you know, and now there's so much trouble. You know, today is December the 14th.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah,
16.
Yeah, we're close to Christmas. There was a mass shooting today in Madison, Wisconsin. Okay, and every time you turn around, somebody's school is getting shot up, somebody's church is getting shot up, somebody's community is falling apart, you know, somebody's getting hit, and trauma is any situation that leaves you feeling like you're not in control, feeling powerless. And, you know, like we have so many people in the church and out of the church who are faced with traumatic circumstances and they don't know how to handle it, okay? And so we have to learn how to deal with the trauma. We have to learn how to move forward with the trauma or from the trauma. And we also have to learn how to engage our spiritual resources to help us to cope.
Okay.
Okay.
How do you navigate social media and in your work, or do you even use it at all?
It's very important. I belong to an organization called the Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference, and one of the things they emphasize is having a massive social media platform. And quite frankly, in order to have a platform like that, you really need somebody who is in charge of, you know, of your platform. You need a public relations person. You need a publicist. So, you know, I use Facebook a lot, and I've got like about 5 Facebook accounts.
Okay.
I've got LinkedIn and all of those others, but you know, it's important in order to communicate with your audience. So, you know, basically it can be done effectively if you have somebody to manage it for you. But if you're going to try to do social media on your own, it's a full-time job, you know, and by the time you try to do social media, which is a full-time job, then your finances, which is a full-time job, you know, and then keep your house clean and take your family out, you know, you just keep you wound up.
Okay, tell me this, the best advice you've gotten from a mentor, someone you looked up to, the best advice that you've gotten that sort of guided you to where you are. And it could be many, okay?
There's a lot. I've been blessed with, you know, an abundance of mentors, and most of my mentors have been people in the religious community. Well, being a pastor, of course. But I have, to answer your question specifically, I would suppose that the most important tidbit of information that I ever got from a pastor was never argue with a fool. Okay. Just don't do it. You know?
Never argue with a fool.
Never argue with a fool. Now, I've got a frat brother who says never put a fool in charge, and that makes sense too. But considering the fact that the Bible tells us we're not supposed to call people fools, you just look at the behavior and you estimate, or you analyze, or are they acting like a fool?
Okay.
And if they're acting like a fool, don't argue with them. So.
Okay, now, since you mentioned frat, you have to say the fraternity you're associated with, okay? We will not be able to get by since you said frat. So which frat do you belong to?
I belong to the great Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity.
Now, did you pledge as a college student or as a grad student?
I pledged as a grad student in the Xi Alpha Lambda chapter in Prince William County, Virginia.
So make me understand why everybody joins a frat. What do you get? I mean, what are some of the benefits that you gain from being in a fraternity?
Okay, first of all, there's the fellowship, there's the brotherhood, there's the camaraderie, there's the intellectual stimulation, there's the social status for what it's worth, there's the networking, okay? But more importantly, I came to a point where I was inactive with my fraternity for about 20 years. I just couldn't keep up with, all of that, and something had to go, so I let the frat go. Excuse me. After I retired and I had more time on my hands, I became active with the frat again. And I realized that what was happening is that as a school teacher, most of my stimulation, intellectual stimulation, was from my students, who were younger, and, for the most part, for a great part of my teaching career, I was teaching junior high school. Okay. So, my intellectual stimulation was coming from 12-year-old kids, And here I have a doctor's degree, and I'm trying to,
you need more stimuli,
grow my mind.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
And then the other part of me, I'm pastoring a church, and with the pastoring, I'm giving, and not really getting anything back in return, And I was in a situation where, I was not really able to be on the equilateral level with the members of the congregation. I had to maintain pastoral distance. So, there was no intellectual or emotional stimulation from the church. There was none from the school, and so I was just dry. And so I was really glad to be able to go back and become a part of the fraternity once again, hang out with the brothers, sit down and talk about, politics, and talk about women, and talk about children, and talk about family, and talk about real estate, and talk about, things that junior high school kids don't talk about. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. The fraternity does a good thing as far as
bringing unity and bringing brotherhood. I know that's very important, especially now. So where's the road going for you?
This is where we're going. I'm doing, of course, the trauma ministry, trauma counseling. Now, whether or not I will hang out a shingle and do counseling, or whether or not I'll have a little office in somebody's church, I don't know. But at any rate, I do want the training. I do want to be informed. I do want to be correct in my approach. I want to be prepared. I want to be astute in my observations and in my the way I think about traumatic situations as I deal with people and as I look at what's going on in the world. And, our world is in, a real bad shape.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're in a whole different quandary. We're in a different world. Okay, so with having said that, what will the church be doing? What should the church be doing now?
Okay, I want to jump to another track, and this is a good segue. First of all, I believe that it is very important for the church to become involved civically and socially. I think that the church needs to, and when I say the church, I mean the people of the church.
People of the church.
You know, because often people say, well, the church is not doing this and the church is not doing that, and what they're talking about is the pastor.
The pastor's not
But
doing.
when I say the church needs to do this and the church needs to do that, I'm talking about the people of church. People of church need to go to council meeting, need to go to city council meeting, need to go to county board meeting, need to go to school board meeting, need to go to PTA meeting, need to go to planning commission meetings. People of the church need to get involved in the community and to be visible. You know, not necessarily to say anything, but just to be visible and to be present and to be seen. Pastors need to have an understanding of industrial psychology, not just theology, but pastors need to understand the church as a living organism and a living organization. Pastors need to understand about group dynamics. Pastors need to understand about traumatic injury and what happens when a person has been traumatized, when a family has been traumatized, when a congregation has been traumatized. Pastors need to understand when a community has been traumatized. And you know, some of the things that have been done, for example, with eminent domain, have traumatized entire communities and knocked people out of their senses. Sometimes people think that for a pastor to be an understanding person makes a pastor weak. And I know that generally that the strong churches have pastors who operate like a dictator with an iron fist and whatnot. But you know, like you don't necessarily need to be a dictator, or if you're not a dictator, it doesn't mean that you're weak. It just means that you're understanding, and it means that you are able to take all of the pieces of a situation, put them together, and make a nice picture puzzle for the people of your congregation.
Wow, that certainly has been very informative. Sitting here with my friend 40 years ago, I was 26 years old, so I was very young when I met this gentleman. And just sitting here talking with him, having a conversation with him, finding out where the road has taken him all this time and all the accomplishments and all the things that he's given us, the words of wisdom about the church and about where we should be and how we should help each other. That's what it's about. And during this holiday season, we just want, from the cast and crew, we want to say happy holidays, and for each and every one of you to be really, really safe and to remember the real meaning of Christmas, the true meaning of Christmas. It's not about all the presents that you get. It's about giving. It's more about love. And love is free, doesn't cost anything. It's more about hugging your kids. It's all about smiling at your neighbor. It's about those kinds of things. And then it's about Christ's birthday. That's the true meaning of Christmas. That's the true meaning of the holiday. So if you don't get that gift that you want, just know that you're alive, and that's the gift that never stops giving. And so, happy holidays. I hope you have enjoyed our time together, and hopefully we'll see you in the new year. Be safe, and remember, smile. Doesn't cost you anything. It's free. Thank you, sir.
God bless you.
I have thoroughly enjoyed you.
Praise the Lord.
And the next time you come, I'm gonna get you on that organ because I know you can play. And if I remember, you probably could sing too.
Maybe next time.
Next time. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.